before I ask, finish on the
How can you get a copy of these slides?
A copy of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, PowerPoint. Yeah.
Oh,
I can send it to you if you, at the break, if you give me your email, I'll send it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question, and that is regarding the self-esteem that you mentioned. In my work over the last several years with young people, and I'm talking of people who are pretty smart, like who made it into medical school, dental school, and yet I noticed that their self-esteem is really, really low. And that's what's I think leading to a lot of depression in the world. And WHO organization, you must know, has declared that depression will be maybe the #1 disease of the future, centuries. So what can we do to prevent that?
Yeah, actually, the depression right now is #1 mental health condition out there. It really is. And self-esteem is an interesting thing. The way that we, human beings, learn to accept and love ourselves is a process of getting to know the human condition. And so having the right kind of role models, the right kind of parenting is very, very critical. One of the things I see so often is people think that, and forgive me, they think that they made a mistake. I don't make mistakes. Hear me out. Every single day, including today, at least 3 times this morning, I do things that, on reflection, I would have done differently. I don't see that as a mistake. When we get an outcome different than expected or hoped for, it's important to recognize we are an experiment. We are the human experiment. We are here not just to fulfill a purpose. We're here to develop. We're here to be co-creative, develop a co-creative recipe for us. And each one of us will be a little bit different. We as a society have failed our younger generation in implanting very incorrect thinking. Way too much competition, way too much, mistakes. It's not the light bulb. Yeah. Thomas Edison. A cub reporter was interviewing Thomas Edison. And he said, "How does it feel, Mr. Edison, to be the world's biggest failure? I hear you've conducted 800 experiments to invent an electric light bulb." Over his glasses, he looked at the cub reporter and he said, "Young man, before you interview someone, get your facts straight. I've conducted over 5,000 experiments, and not a single one was a failure. I learned something about the nature of different kinds of metals, and ceramics, and gases, and twisting of metals. I have learned something from every one of those experiments, and therefore, you can put this in paper, I will, in the next year, invent the first light bulb that burns, doesn't blow up and burn out." Actually, it was less than 6 months later. So much of our youth, and that's also true for adults, most of us human beings are carrying around a lot of faulty language. I call it viruses in our biocomputer. And because of that, it interferes enormously with someone having a good self-esteem, because they think that they have failed, they think that they've made mistakes, they think that they're not good enough, they think, it just goes on and on and on. And that's been imprinted into them from a young age. How do we reward children? Oh, look, they talked. Oh, look, they're walking in school. Oh, look, they got the grade. Do we reward when someone puts forth good effort and learns something but maybe only got a C? We don't tend to. So a lot of this low self-esteem, and you are so correct, it is very prevalent, is because there's too much garbage that's been implanted and people don't know that that garbage is there. And so it's a matter of identifying it, reframing it, removing it, working with it, so that we recognize the human condition for what it really is. That's, for quick, that's my answer.
Thank you very much. This is good. I will, if you don't mind, I'll relate my one example of positivity, what you just talked about. Edison and everybody else and putting everything. I have a granddaughter, 4.5 years old. So I take her to school in the morning and bring her back. And we play music. I brought some Indian music, so we play music. So she was 4 years old, and I started playing the music, and she says, Dada, I hate this music. Okay. So I immediately started. I said, Sonali, her name is Sonali. I said, Sonali, that is not a word you say, hey, you know. You did not prefer to hear that word. So you have to tell Dada, I don't prefer to hear this song. Can you please change it? And believe me, since that, she has not used that word hate, at least in front of me. And that I give credit to not me as a good grandparent, but holistic science is the one who changed my belief and immediately recognized what my I have a lot of examples like that with my grandchild. You know, and in fact, with their permission, I'm trying to write a book on this all, these two, so someday we'll be forward to it. We can take one more question before we give to Dr. Selfesteem.
I hope we can keep this short, but life is a conflict. There is conflicts in decision making on an hourly basis. On one hand, it's about being happy with what you have. On the other hand, it's striving for more. America, the land of opportunity where people, immigrants from all over the world converge, because this is where dreams happen. Person that wants to start a business. You go on, you set yourself a sort of an invisible glass ceiling of self-achievement. And only if you had done a little bit more. Now all this causes an enormous amount of stress. Now whether you're in the corporate world, or you're in the business world, or if you're a young student who is striving to get into med school or law school or whatever. Earlier, Dr. Mehta had mentioned about balance in life. In reality, this is a whole lot harder than it appears to be. Can you kind of throw a little light? And I know this is not something you could possibly answer in 2 minutes. You probably need 2 days to do this. But if you can,
I can do it.
Address that. Okay.
Achievement outside of self is achievement here. It is temporary, and to be quite blunt, it really isn't that important. The main achievement is what are you doing in order to truly manifest your highest self. And if you don't do that, I have a whole workshop I do. I call this primary and secondary knowledge. The things that you mentioned about striving for more in corporate America, all of that is striving for secondary knowledge. I have rarely, if ever, seen anyone be able to be truly satisfied with secondary knowledge if they don't first have primary knowledge. Primary knowledge is only two things, and I'm almost done. Who, as a person, do I really most want to be? If I envision me at my fullest potential, what kind of traits, characteristics, behaviors, has to do with the body? What kind of person was that be? And what am I doing today to either prepare myself or move in that direction? And part number 2 of primary knowledge. What do I most want to do with my life energy before moving on from this life? What holds the most meaning for me, the most purpose, what really gives me direction? What do I really resonate with? What am I passionate about? If one strives for primary knowledge, you come to realize all that secondary knowledge is just that. It's secondary, and you don't put such an investment in it because, quite bluntly, it really isn't as important as the primary knowledge. That's my answer.
Thank you.
Can I have one quick question?
We're talking about self-esteem, but it's just so hard to draw a line. Self-esteem, good pride, and then when you go into arrogance, you never know. So where do you draw the line? How do you know that you're not arrogant about it, or you just have a pride about it, or it's just your self-esteem? And sometimes, most of the time I have seen that it just perceived as arrogance. So can you...
Excellent question. The measure that I use, and I don't impose this on anyone else, we all have a right to create our own measurements. When I see someone who has healthy self-esteem, and I can see it in their face, I can hear it in their voice, I can see it by their actions. They're feeling good, they have self-confidence, they feel good about self, and they're using their life energy for the betterment of others or of community. They're focused on what their actions are doing for other people. They're not focused on self. That's why I said, and I meant this at the top of my handout, for me, it's an honor and a privilege to be here and be able to share some things that I've learned over the years that I know have some value, and I hope that some of them will have value for you. Arrogance, I see someone is focused on self-aggrandizement. They're focused on who they are. They see their point of view as being the viewpoint. They don't recognize that everybody has a right to a viewpoint. I mean, there's so many differences, there's hundreds of differences that I see between someone who has solid, good self-esteem and self-confidence and someone who's arrogant. The arrogance is, they're always focusing on self, or trying to make themselves, I don't know, be somebody, whatever the heck. But that's the measure that I use.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. One of your slides talked about self-talk, positive self-talk.
I didn't say positive.
Well, self-talk to make you do better. At what age do you think you should teach kids to do that? What's the starting point?
To be quite honest about it, and I am a father, I have a daughter, she's grown. I began before she even understood language, because a lot of language is in delivery. It's not just the words, it's the intonation, it's the pronunciation, it's the look on the face. If you begin, and some people believe, and I don't disagree, while the child is in the womb, in terms of the music you play and talking to the child, and there's a lot of, one of my degrees is in child development, I don't want to get too crazy here. I actually believe beginning while the child is in the womb, because children are like sponges. They absorb everything, and so I believe beginning at the beginning.
Thank you very much. And